Hi everyone, it's me Gaming 2, and it is that time of the year once again. It's the time of year where it's time to wrap things up for the year in general, and with that comes my yearly film ranking, and this year we're going to be ranking all of the films from 2023 that I've seen this year. Once again, this is going to be the biggest one yet, as this year we are going to be ranking 22 films. Yes, I saw 22 films from 2023 this year, and we're going to go all over the new releases from worst to best. And you know the drill if you've seen my videos. I've been doing these yearly film rankings since 2017, and it's time for the 2023 edition. So, what comes in at number 22? Well, you'll just have to wait and find out. Number 22, the worst film of 2023 in my opinion, is Trolls Band Together. Listen, if it wasn't for my DreamWorks ranking, and that film coming out around the time I did my ranking, I would not have watched this film. Because I thought it was gonna suck, and it did suck. I pretty much put all three of the Trolls films equally, hating them. I don't think this one is as bad as the second one, but I'd probably put the first one above it because it has one good meme in it. I don't like anything about this film. I think it's super annoying. The characters are dislikable. The animation styles, different ones, is a little bit cool, but still, I don't know, it's just so annoying. The characters are dislikable. The songs are really freaking irritating. Trolls Band Together is the worst film of the year, in my opinion. And I said, oh boy, from Multiverse of Madness, the MCU can't get any worse, can it? Well, in comes Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which might just be my least favorite film in the entire MCU. I'm serious. I had a horrible time with this film. First of all, Cassie Lang, who was likable in the first two films, I guess because she was a little child in the first two films, is now pretty much a grown adult and has an attitude that just, her character freaking got on my nerves. And I didn't like really any of the characters except for Ant-Man himself, but especially Kang the Conqueror. It's a damn shame, the situation with Jonathan Majors, because I don't think they're going to be doing anything with Kang anymore, and that's a shame. Because he had a lot of freaking potential. He was so good in this movie. Which is what saves it from... It would have been last place if I never saw Trolls World Tour. But, all year, this never really left towards the bottom until I saw Trolls. Then that took it over, but this has never left the bottom too, and this is one of the first films of the entire year that I saw. And it was not a very good one. This is a shameful movie from the MCU, and it's like... It's what made me think, okay, this company doesn't care anymore. DreamWorks, come on. Now this is a big step up from 21 and 22, but still, you had such a good year last year with The Bad Guys and especially Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And then this film comes out, which Teenage Kraken is not bad. It's not a horrible movie, but still, it feels like a kind of weaker version of Turning Red, I guess you can say. I do like the characters overall, but the story is just very copy paste turning red, so I don't feel any originality with this movie, so I can't really put this film above number 20. Okay, Marvel, we get it. You're not as good as you used to be, but well, at least you got one good film out this year. Coming in at 19 is The Marvels. The Marvels is actually a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. I heard people hating on this film when it first came out last month, and I was like, oh, great. Is this going to be... One guy that I watched called this the worst MCU film yet. And I disagree. I like this film about as much as I like the original Captain Marvel. I might even give this one the edge because of Iman Vellani's Miss Marvel. She was actually extremely charming in the film. I could care less about Carol and Monica, though. They didn't bring much to the movie. Sadly, Samuel L. Jackson didn't bring too much either. I usually freaking love him in the Marvel movies. But not this time. Actually, it's been a pretty disappointing year for Nick Fury because Secret Invasion, I watched the first 2 episodes of it and not a big fan, that's all I'll say. This is so disappointing because you talked to me 4 years ago in 2019, I would have said, Marvel will never go downhill. Well, it went downhill. Okay, this one's a weird one. This is by far the least memorable film I saw this year. But from what I do remember, it was actually quite creepy. Number 18 is VHS 85. This, like I said, is the least memorable film I saw this year. I can barely remember anything that happened with it. I think it was an anthology horror film where they told 3 stories. And it was like VHS style from 1985 and stuff. Excuse me, I had a cough. Like VHS style from 1985 and stuff like that, which is really cool, and I love the style, but I don't know, the stories weren't that interesting, I guess you could say, if I can barely remember them, so VHS 85 comes in at number 18. For how much this film had to go through this year, it's a miracle. It actually turned out pretty decent. Number 17 is The Flash. I had a good time with this film overall. It is definitely on the lower part of the list because the visuals are surprisingly pretty bad in this movie, and while some of the humor works, a lot of it doesn't, and I guess you could say kind of feels like Multiverse of Madness in the sense of cameos for the sake of it. Kind of how I feel about this film too. I just wish the good parts of this movie were actually pretty good, but there were some aspects of the film that I didn't like at all. And that's why I put The Flash at number 17. This is the most recent film that I've seen, and it's Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget. I just got done watching this film earlier this morning. It was the last film I had to see before making this ranking. I also saw Wonka this week, and we'll get into Wonka way later down the list, because I really enjoyed that film. But as for Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget, I thought it was good. It was a pretty good sequel to Chicken Run, but, I mean, I wish there was a little more to it, I guess. It's a little bit disappointing that only one of the original voice cast came back for this film. And, I'm quite okay with Zachary Levi replacing, Mel Gibson. But, I'm not I don't really understand why the rest of the cast didn't come back. I guess maybe because they just didn't want to. But if this is on an Aardman ranking, I would which I might do one day. We'll see. I'm a pretty big fan of Aardman's work. I would probably put this towards the bottom half. I don't know. I just like the original a little more, and comes in at number 16 on my ranking for the films of the year. Alright, 15 is Strays. Strays is the film I saw on my birthday. We made lobster rolls and ate lobster rolls and mac and cheese while watching this film on my birthday. And it was very funny. You want to know what film I compare this to the most? Even down to kind of the poster? Good Boys from 2019. It was the film with Jacob Tremblay in it and his friends, and they basically got to go to a party to kiss, and they're trying to prove to each other that, oh, I'm more mature than you and stuff like that. You know the movie. That was a funny movie. I feel just about the same with Strays. It's basically the dog version of that movie, and it's a blast. It was an absolute blast. The story itself could have had a little more to it, I guess you could say, and it is a pretty stupid movie. But it's a film I had an absolute blast with, so I can't put it too low. It's number 15. I really wanted this film to be higher on the list. But coming in at number 14 is the new Ridley Scott film, Napoleon. I have been studying a lot about the French culture in the past year or so, and learning a lot about Napoleon and the French Revolution. It just really piqued my interest. This was my most anticipated film for the second half of 2023. And how did it turn out? A bit disappointing. It's not a bad movie. It's a good movie, actually. But I really wish there was a little more to this film. Like, it would have explained a little more about the French Revolution and stuff like that. Like, some stuff that I already know, but they didn't even say in the movie, I guess you could say. So, I don't know if this was planning to be the most realistic film ever, but I wish there was a little more about the French Revolution they had in this film. And also, I feel like this film actually gets a little bit silly at times, believe it or not, which I get that it's kind of supposed to, but I wish there was a little more seriousness to this film, and this film would have been excellent. But for what it is, it's still a good movie that I'd honestly be willing to watch again. It's just, it's got some flaws to it. Here's a film that came out when I was in Connecticut. Number 13 is Five Nights at Freddy's. I remember this film a lot from seeing the posters at the theater in Old Mystic Village. And, I kind of wanted to see it. I watched it probably the week after we got back from Connecticut. I put it on Peacock. And if you're a FNAF fan, it's a blast. I'm more of kind of where I'd put Star Wars for me. A casual fan. I like the franchise, but I'm not a fanatic of FNAF. I like the FNAF franchise, but I'm not a fanatic or anything. You know what I'm trying to say. The animatronics, when they do shine, shine. There just should have been a little more of them. Less about William Afton and the one worker and stuff like that, and more about the animatronics. We've been waiting almost a decade for this film. And the product that came out, well, good. I think could have been a little bit better. I was very excited to finally see another Indiana Jones film. I really was. And while I thought it was good and definitely better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, It's nothing compared to the original trilogy. I'm sorry, but for how much they anticipated that this was going to be the last big Indiana Jones film, this is Harrison Ford's last time as Indiana Jones. The ending especially was very disappointing. I think it should have been way more, and the more I think about it, the more I wish they just ended the franchise with Last Crusade. Definitely had some good parts in it. I like most of what the action brings in this film, but I can't help but think that this film is still pretty flawed compared to the original trilogy. But, you know what? I, for the most part, enjoyed this film overall. And here is the purely silliest film of 2023, but in a very, very good way. That being Cocaine Bear, which comes in at number 11. This film is a blast. Absolute blast. It is a... I think they were kind of doing a so bad it's good film, but on purpose. And it really works. Like, this film is extremely self-aware on how silly it is. But it actually works out in its favor immensely because it's hilarious. It's so entertaining to watch this bear go on a rampage while he's on, or she, because she's a mother bear with her cubs, and they're on coke, basically. And when the cubs are on it too, it's freaking, oh my god. This film is so much fun, but almost feels like a 2022 film to me. Like, I almost forgot this film was released this year. And that's because this has been a pretty long year compared to the past few years, so... It seemed like this film came out last year, but no, it actually came out in 2023. And it's an entertaining freaking laugh riot. I really like this film. Barbie is probably the biggest film of the entire year, even bigger than the Super Mario Brothers movie. It was the biggest box office hit of the year and stuff like that. Everyone was anticipating the hell out of this movie. And what's my take on it? Because it's actually a pretty controversial film. I quite liked it. I thought it was very good. It was very entertaining. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to actually like. I'm not a political person, so maybe the preachiness of the film gets to me a little bit. But I guess I can understand why they said it, but I don't focus on that. There's plenty to the film that is not political and stuff like that, and those are the best parts of the movie. My favorite part is John Cena as a mermaid. That's freaking amazing. I can't explain how much I love John Cena as a freaking mermaid. I also like Michael Cera's character a lot in this film. Ryan Gosling was freaking hilarious. And Margot Robbie was very charming in this film. There is a lot to like about this film. It's not my favorite, but I would actually put it on the top half of this year. There's a lot to like about this film, but maybe it's a bit too preachy for my liking for constant rewatches. But for what it was, I actually enjoyed this film a lot more than I thought I was going to. Megan is the Child's Play 2019 remake done even better. This film was such a good time. It's a horror movie, and it's not a particularly scary one, but it is a very entertaining one. I love all the scenes where Megan, especially when they get to the toy factory and stuff like that, and she ends up pretty much killing all the CEOs and stuff like that. That's freaking epic. This is the very first film from 2023 I saw. I saw this film at the very end of January, and I had a very good time with it. Um, it is a bit silly for a horror film, but I mean, we expected it was going to be. Kind of like Cocaine Bear, where I expected it was going to be a little bit silly. I did expect this film was going to be a little bit silly, and it was. But that's a good thing, because it's a very entertaining movie. Honestly, I think this is M. Night Shyamalan's best film since The Visit. And that came out almost 10 years ago. That's hard to believe. I remember the time it came out. I think I was in 8th grade. It's hard to believe 8th grade was so freaking long ago. But anyways, yeah, Knock at the Cabin was awesome. I think it was kind of a return to form for M. Night Shyamalan. I feel like the twists were pretty damn good in it and stuff like that. And watching all these crazy end of the world people basically convincing this family, one of the members, to sacrifice themselves. It makes you feel uncomfortable, but in a good way. Like, it's really affecting you the way it's supposed to. And it's very creepy, especially the scene with Rupert Grint. And what else can I say? This is my favorite M. Night movie since The Visit. Alright, Pixar. You didn't have the greatest year in the world last year. Can you at least give me a pretty good film? Which is what I can not say besides one of them for Marvel Studios. Oh, yes, you can. Coming in at number 7 is Elemental, which I love. I honestly love this film. I think almost everything about this film works for me. Except there is one big problem I have with this film. But most of it works very well for me. I love the chemistry between Ember and Wade. I love the whole Elemental world and stuff like that. My problem with the film is that I'm not a huge fan of the third act of the film. I think it gets a little bit liar revealed-esque, which is a trope that I've gone. The older I get, the more I care about it and dislike it, and definitely had aspects of that. But you know what? Outside of Luca, this is my favorite Pixar film of the decade so far. It actually works really freaking well for me. And I'm hoping Pixar's next film, which is Inside Out 2 at this point, I hope they can bring even more effort than this, which this was a great film, but I'm hoping Pixar can get back on track and make great films again, like this one. Guys, Wonka is an absolute blast. This film is so much fun. I was actually anticipating this film the closer it got to its release date. I don't even think I put this in my top 10 most anticipated films last year, but when I found out that this film was coming out, I was like, cool. I'm a pretty big fan of the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I'm okay with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory too, so I'd like to see this, and I had a really good time with it. I think Timothée Chalamet is actually one of the best choices for Willy Wonka himself, and I really like the Oompa Loompas in the film again, but I'm not really a fan of the rest of the characters. They're more kind of hit or miss for me, but you know what? Wonka is actually even better than I expected it was going to be. And I thought this was going to be a pretty charming movie, but this, believe it or not, is actually a really good film to watch at during the Christmas season. Kind of like Spider-Man No Way Home was a few years ago. I kind of missed that about 2022, is that we didn't get a Christmassy feeling film that year like we got for No Way Home. Luckily, 2023, we got a Christmassy feeling film in Wonka. And I actually had a blast with this film. Comes in at number 6. Number 5, and bringing us into the top 5, is one of the other biggest films of the year besides Barbie, the Super Mario Brothers movie. This is one of 2 films I saw in the movie theater this year, and it was awesome. Nothing short of it. Listen, if you're not a big fan of Super Mario Brothers, I'd say you're not going to like this as much as other people, especially the fans of the franchise, because this is a love letter. Absolute love letter to fans of the franchise. Most of the cast actually did very well. I liked Seth Rogen's Donkey Kong, Charlie Day's Luigi, and Jack Black's Bowser the most. I thought they all killed it in their roles. I thought most of the rest of the cast, which is mainly Chris Pratt, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Keegan-Michael Key, to kind of just be alright. I like Keegan-Michael Key too, but Chris Pratt as Mario was good. I think it wasn't like this, oh, people were laughing at that choice, and it wasn't the, oh, you'll see how good Chris Pratt is as Mario as much as we thought. It was like, oh, it is Chris Pratt as Mario. Could have been worse, I guess you could say. But, I like the Nintendo world they put in this film. I love it. Just, if you're a fan of the Mario games, this is the movie for you. And it has a much better representation than that pretty cringeworthy 1993 film. I'm gonna be honest with you. Oppenheimer took a while to get going. But when it did, ooh, it was non-stop awesomeness. Oppenheimer comes in at number 4 on my list. I think this film is... the last 2 acts, at least, are a freaking blast. And I'm not saying the first act isn't good or anything, but I expected a lot more to happen, and that was sort of just exposition, kind of, and it was not a huge problem. It does bring it out of the top 3 for me because of that, but you know what? The last 2 acts of this film, especially the said big explosion that they were going to have for the film, chef's kiss in terms of the visuals. This is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie since the Dark Knight trilogy, and that's saying a lot because I did like films like Interstellar and stuff like that, but this is just an awesome movie in my opinion. This movie was a huge surprise for me. I didn't even hear about this film until I watched Cody Leach's review on it. And then I believe it was a few months later, I finally got to watch this film. Talk to Me it's overtaken The Black Phone as the scariest film of the decade for me so far. This film is freaking scary. No doubt about it. It is terrifying, especially the scenes with the one, what's his name again? It was the one younger boy in the film. When he gets possessed and he's like in the bathroom bashing himself. It's freaking spooky. This film actually gets under my skin with how scary it is, and the only other film to do that this year is The Black Phone. Or this decade. The only other film to do that this decade is The Black Phone. This was a scary film, and I love it because of that. Talk to Me comes in at number 3. Wow, I was just kind of crap talking Marvel, huh? Well, both of the top two films for this year, in my opinion, are both ultimately Marvel films. Number two is Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. It's not a Marvel Studios film, but it is another collaboration with Sony Pictures Animation and Marvel. And I like this one even more than the first one. I love seeing all the different spider people and stuff like that. I love seeing all the different Spider-Man worlds. I love the story between all the characters. Um, but the animation is my favorite part of this movie. This, in my opinion, might just be the best film ever in terms of its animation. It's freaking breathtaking. Um, just by pretty much preference and the fact on how satisfied I was with number one is the reason why I put Spider-Verse at number two. Because I can't name many flaws with this film. Seriously, I think this film is pretty much perfect. But I also think number one is pretty much perfect, and just by preference, I prefer number one a little bit more. So let's get on into it, guys. What is my favorite film of 2023? That, of course, would be the one and only good MCU film this year, and the one and only perfect MCU film this year. Number one, my favorite film of 2023 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the other two films the MCU put out this year, but the studio really made up for it by bringing us Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I pretty much think is the perfect conclusion to this trilogy. Everyone gets a perfect story in this film. Everyone gets a perfect ending, I think. I love the new Guardians team that they're going to make, so it's kind of why I say I would like to see more Guardians, but if we somehow don't, I am probably more than okay at this being the last Guardians film. This film was heartbreaking, especially the scenes with Rocket's flashbacks and them basically trying to bring him not to freaking die. This film brings up the drama drastically, and it is freaking heartbreaking. But it is also freaking hilarious, especially the scenes with Drax and him making the monkey noises to cheer the kids up inside of the high evolutionary ship and stuff like that. That Drax is my favorite Guardians character, I think. I think he's just so freaking hilarious, but I don't know. Because Rocket was good in this film in the more serious sense, where he was... They kind of changed a little bit, because I think Drax was the most serious character in the first film, while Rocket was the most funny character in the first film. Here, I think it's the polar opposite, where Drax is the most funny character, and Rocket is the most serious. That's what I love about these films. You can't expect it, really. Like, it changes, and it changes in a good way. Everybody gets a good story. Star-Lord gets a good ending with him meeting his grandfather again. Groot and Rocket get a good ending by forming the new Guardians. Drax gets a good ending by taking care of the kids. Not really sure what Mantis's ending was, but good for her, basically. And this trilogy just ended perfectly, in my opinion, and pretty much tied with the original for my number 3 and 2 spot for the entire MCU. I love this film, and I always will. Thank you, Marvel, for making one perfect film again. Please do it again with Deadpool 3 next year. And well, that's about it for this video, guys. I hope you liked that 2023's films are finally over. We did the ranking. Later next week, we're going to do my top 10 most anticipated films for 2024. And this has been a wild year for film and Hollywood because of the Hollywood strikes and stuff like that that happened in the middle of the year. But ultimately, I think even with that, 2023 was a pretty good year for films. And I'm excited to see what 2024 brings for films as well. And that's about it, guys. Gaming Do here. See you later. Bye.